For today's Thought for the Day, we hear from Ness, our team vicar, and her daughter Nadia, as they share their experiences of being a mum and a priest, and the daughter of a priest. Ness, how did being a mum influence your call to ministry?
I think it's fair to say that being a mum was something to be addressed carefully in being called to ministry, rather than the children influencing the calling. So, for example, I had a friend who, during her pregnancy, and even more so once she'd given birth, had a very strong initial conviction of a calling. Maybe it was the hormones, and she would say that too, because God can work in us and within us in so many varied ways. Her new baby was integral to the way God called upon her life. My children were very young when I began my discernment with my incumbent and DDO, and when I started theological training, they were still just 6 and 9 years old. Although we looked at full-time residential theology training, it was best for us at that stage not to uproot completely, so we stayed put with them at their same school. I kept my part-time job in the NHS, and my theological training was a 3-year distance learning programme. The complexity was the juggling act of commuting to my NHS job, commuting to my weekly theology tutorials, and commuting several times a year to theological college for residentials. I often looked back on that time and reflected that if I or the children had been at all unwell during that time, the whole thing would have fallen down like a pack of cards. I was also fortunate to have someone prepared to look after the children when I was absent, which was an enormous blessing. Later on during curacy, the timing of moving to my first post was critical for Barney in particular, so that we avoided moving schools halfway through his A-levels. We've been really blessed by the way timings have worked out for them and their education not being adversely interrupted. Nowadays, I'm more worried about moving to another post whilst they are away at university and then returning to a completely unfamiliar area where they know no one. So this is really important to be careful about for them in the future.
Thank you, Ness. Nadia, how does it feel being the daughter of a priest?
When I'm explaining to my friends what my mum does at work, or when she comes to parents' evening with a dog collar on, it's a little bit weird. But in reality, it's pretty amazing. It's given me the opportunity to meet so many people over the years, of all ages, and to be part of a variety of different experiences, all of which I'm really grateful for. From bell ringing at the age of 7, meeting Prince Charles when he helped to fix the church roof, and spending weekends away in the Forest of Dean with a different church. I've also been to many different church fates, and if I'm being honest, they never really get any better. Sometimes it's also fun. I like to shout across the garden, "Would you like some more tea, Vicar?" On the other hand, it isn't always easy. We have to move house quite a lot and sometimes change schools, much more than other families. Sometimes when we go on holiday, unlike every other family, Mum wants to visit every single church that we see. I personally think they all look the same, but overall I really do like her job.
Thank you. Ness, is it important to you as a priest that your children are involved in church?
When my children were really young, they didn't have a lot of choice about coming along to church because, of course, you can't leave little ones home alone. So by default, they were both present with me. Looking back, I think it's fair to say that I made an assumption that they both enjoyed the experience similarly, but what they told me as they grew up was rather different. Nadia consistently embraced all that church was and is, but my son, once old enough to stay home alone, made it clear he really didn't like church at all. It's quite hard to swallow that something you've encouraged a child to be involved in for their whole life is rejected. But what's most important to hold on to is that a child is a gift from God, and as such, as a gift to us, they don't really belong to us, they belong to God. And I think then that we have to begin the process of letting go from the moment we give birth. That's not at all to say that we don't care and love and cherish and nurture, but we have to let them become the people they want to be. Encouraging them in a faith, I believe, is massively important, but they must have choices about what they do with that. So one of mine, Nadia, is involved and one isn't. They are both totally wonderful people, but of course there's a special blessing of seeing a faith coming alive in one of your offspring. The blessing instead of Barney is hearing him working on some impossibly difficult rhythm on his drums and usually succeeding rather loudly.
Thank you. And finally, Nadia, how do you feel your own faith has been shaped through your mum's call to ministry?
There are a multitude of ways in which I believe that my own faith has been shaped. Through small but powerful conversations when I'm waiting for Mum, yet again, after a church service, or when she drags me to a cathedral with her on a Sunday off. I actually love this. The sound of the choirs proclaiming God's words builds my faith in me. During lockdown, I have been sneaking into Mum's study while she is doing her evening prayer, and sometimes we sing together, particularly Christ Be With Me. I like to sing my own version. In conclusion, Mum's ministry has led me to my faith and the strength and abundance that it is at today.
Thank you to both Ness and Nadia for sharing their experiences with us today.